Hello everyone, welcome to my channel, welcome to our another video, welcome to our new video. Disclaimer, none of the event mentioned are true, no idol is being harmed in the video, and any idol doesn't have any type of negative roles. And please don't forget to like, comment and subscribe to my channel. Let's start our next episode of our video. He hated the word, hated the thought, but there was no denying it. His brother kindness had drawn out smiles, glances, warmth, all the things he himself had buried under cruelty. And now, watching them together, he felt as though something precious was slipping from his grasp. Even though he had never reached out for it in the first place. That night, lying awake, Jungkook's mind betrayed him with memories. He remembered the early days before bitterness consumed him, when Minnie's shy smiles had been his to claim. He remembered the way her eyes used to search for his approval, her voice trembling whenever she spoke his name. He had destroyed that, yet seeing her warmth return for someone else, his own brother, was unbearable. It began subtly. Jungkook started watching them, his eyes drawn unwillingly whenever they shared a space. In the garden, he saw Jaemin pluck a leaf from her hair, their eyes meeting briefly as she whispered, "I thank you." In the hallway, he noticed her carrying a heavy tray, only for Jaemin to rush forward and take it from her. She smiled, touched by the gesture, and Jungkook's heart darkened. At dinner, when Jaemin pulled out a chair for her, Jungkook saw the gratitude in her glance. Each moment lodged in his chest like a thorn. He misread them all, blinded by the jealousy he refused to name. To him, those glances were not gratitude, but intimacy. Those smiles were not innocent, but conspirational. And so resentment bloomed, not only toward Minnie, but toward Jaemin as well. One evening, he cornered her in the hallway, his voice low and sharp. "You seem to be enjoying my brother's company a little too much." Her eyes widened in shock. "What?" "Don't act innocent," he snapped, stepped closer. "I have seen the way you look at him, smiling, laughing, as if he means something to you." Tears welled in her eyes. "He's your brother. I only treat him with respect because no one else treats me like family." Her voice broke at the end, but she held his gaze. "If you see kindness as betrayal, then perhaps the cruelty you show me is your version of love." Her words struck him, but he buried the sting beneath anger. "Careful, Minnie. Don't forget whose wife you are." She flinched, lowering her gaze, her tears falling silently. She wanted to scream that she had never strayed, that her heart had always belonged to him, despite his cruelty. But she said nothing, because no matter what words she spoke, he would twist them, doubt them. And Jungkook, though he walked away victorious, His silence felt so triumphant, only the gnawing edge of jealousy, the bitterness of a man who feared he was losing what he had never truly cherished. That night he drank until the world blurred, but the image of her smiling at Jaemin burned in his mind, fueling a fire he could neither quench nor confess. The house was silent, heavy with the weight of Jungkook's unspoken anger. Since the day he had noticed Minnie smiling in Jaemin company, his thoughts had been poisoned with jealousy. The bitterness only grew sharper with each passing day. He no longer saw her as the quiet, obedient wife who bore his cruelty in silence. In his clouded mind, she was now a woman who dared to find comfort in other man's presence, even if that man was his own brother. That morning, Jungkook sat at the head of the dining table, his eyes cold as Minnie quietly placed a dish before him. She moved slower than usual, her face pale, but he paid no attention. His heart was too full of rage to notice the weirdness in her steps. Why is the floor still dirty? He barked suddenly, his voice slicing through the air. The servants froze in place. Do you spend all day dreaming instead of working? Minnie lowered her gaze. I cleaned it yesterday, Jungkook. I was going to. Don't make excuses, he snapped, rising to his feet. His voice carried enough venom to make even the servants shudder. If you have the strength to sit in gardens and smile at others, you have the strength to scrub every corner of this house until it shines. Her lips parted in shock, but she said nothing. To answer him would be to provoke further humiliation. She bowed her head and whispered softly, "Yes," and so began her punishment. Jungkook ordered her to sweep, to mop, to carry heavy bucket of water. Despite her fragile frame, she bent over in silence, scrubbing the marble floors until her fingers blistered. The servants, though pity stared in their eyes, dared not interfere. To help her would mean incurring Jungkook's wrath. Minnie's chest ached, a dull pain that had been troubled her for days. Her vision blurred as sweat trickled down her temples, but she pressed on. Every step felt heavier than the last, her body crying for rest. Yet she bore it all, swelling the pain because she knew Jungkook had no room for mercy. From his study window, Jungkook watched her dragging a bucket across the courtyard. His jaw tightened. A part of him buried deep beneath his anger, noticed her trembling steps and the paleness of her skin. But he silenced it with the cruel voice inside him. She deserved it. Let her suffer as I have suffered. And so he turned away, ignoring the scream of something fragile inside his chest. It was past noon when her body finally betrayed her. Minnie was bent over, scrubbing the steps leading to the veranda, when the world suddenly spun. A sharp pain cut through her stomach, stealing her breath. She tried to hold herself steady, gripping the edge of the step, But her strength crumbled. With a soft gasp, she collapsed to the ground, unconscious. The servants rushed forward in panic. One cried out, "Madam," while other ran to fetch the doctor. Words of her clasp reached Jungkook in his study, but he did not rise immediately. For a long moment he simply sat there, his jaw clenched, his chest tight with an emotion he refused to name. When the doctor finally arrived and examined her, the entire household waited with bated breath. Jungkook stood at the edge of the room, arms crossed, his expression unreadable. The doctor cleared his throat, his eyes darting nervously between Jungkook and the pale figure of Miinnie lying on the bed. "Sir, your wife is not merely exhausted, she's expecting." The word hung in the air like a thunderclap. The servant gasped softly, exchanging looks of shock and relief. But Jungkook's face did not change. Excitement, perhaps even guilt for the way he had treated her. Yet all Jungkook felt was a hollow edge. He thought of his father's ruined business, of the betrayal he believed Minnie's family had orchestrated. He thought about smiles shared with Jaemin, and instead of joy, he felt bitterness coiled tighter around his heart. Ensure she recovers enough to continue her duties, Jungkook said coldly. His words were like ice, shattering whatever fragile hope had flickered in Minnie's heart, even as she drifted between consciousness and sleep. The doctor hesitated. "Sir, she must rest properly if she's a child." I said, "Do your job." Jungkook cut him off sharply, his glare silencing the man. When the doctor left, the servants remained quiet, their eyes downcast. No one dared voice the thought that echoed in all their minds, that the master of the house had just denied himself the joy of fatherhood with his own cruelty. In the days that followed, it was not Jungkook who turned into Minnie, it was Jaemin. He had been out when she collapsed, but the news reached him quickly. He rushed to her side, his heart pounding with worry. The sight of her lying pale and weak in bed, her hands trembling even in sleep, filled him with both anger and sorrow. Hyung, Jaemin confronted Jungkook later that night, his voice trembling. "She's carrying your child. How can be you so indifferent?" Jungkook's jaw tightened. "Stay out of matters that don't concern you." "She's my sister-in-law," Jaemin shot back. "It concerns me when she's treated like this under our roof." The words hung between them, sharp and heavy. Jungkook said nothing more, but his silence was enough. Jaemin left with a bitter taste in his mouth, vowing quietly that if Jungkook would not protect her, then he would. And so he began his quiet rebellion. Every morning before Jungkook appeared, Jaemin brought a tray of warm soup or porridge to Minnie's room. He coaxed her to eat, reminding her gently that she was no longer alone, than the life within her needed. strength. When she tried to rise and resume her chores, he placed a firm hand on her shoulders. Rest, please. Let me handle it. Minnie's thought hesitant, felt tears sitting in her eyes. His kindness. No one had spoken to her like that in weeks. No one had looked at her with such sincerity. She wanted to protest, to say that Jungkook would be furious if he discovered Jaemin involvement, but her body was too weak. Her heart was too desperate for even the smallest kindness. In the evening, Jaemin would sit by her beside, asking softly, "Are you comfortable? Do you need anything?" Sometimes he read aloud to her, filling the silence with words that distracted her from the ache in her chest. Sometimes he simply sat there, his presence a quiet reassurance that she was not invisible. The servants, too, began to follow his example. Encouraged by Jamin's defiance, they slipped into her room with fruits, warm blankets, and whispered words of comfort. It was as though the house itself had chosen sides, and Jungkook, in his cold indifference, stood alone. Yet, even as she felt gratitude toward Jamin, Minnie's heart ached because the one person she truly longed for, the father of her unborn child, remained distant, unmoved, locked behind the walls of his bitterness. And Jungkook, though he pretended not to notice the quiet rebellion in his own house, felt the sting of it all the same. He saw Jamin entering in a room, carrying trays of food, heard her soft laughter drifting to the corridor late at night. Each sound, each sight fed the fire of his jealousy, twisted into something darker. But still he said nothing. Still he turned his back, because admitting the truth that her pain haunted him, that her smiles given to Jamin burned him, would mean acknowledging that his cruelty was destroying not just her, but himself. And Jungkook was not yet ready to face that truth. The night was thick with silence, broken only by the faint sound of crickets outside the large estate. The household had long settled into slumber, but Jungkook found no peace in sleep. He had wandered the halls restlessly, his chest heavy with the storm that had been brewing for weeks. It was then that he saw it, passing by the corridors that led to Minnie's chamber. He paused as light spilled faintly from beneath the half-closed door. Against his better judgment, his steps slowed, his jaw tightened, when a soft voice reached his ears. "Here." Jamin's gentle tone carried through the gap. "Drink this, it will ease the pain in your stomach." Curiosity sharpened into something darker, and Jungkook pushed the door open very slightly. The sight that greeted him made his blood boil. Minnie was propped up against pillow, her face pale but softened by the small, graceful smile she offered. In Jamin's hand was a small porcelain cup of medicine. He held it carefully, his other hand supporting her waist as though she were fragile glass. She hesitated at first, then took a sip, her lips brushing the rim of the cup. Jaemin's eye lingered on her face, full of concern, and when she coughed softly, he reached out instinctively to steady her. It was a picture of tenderness, a picture Jungkook had never allowed to himself to give her. His fist clenched as tightly that his nails bit into his skin. His chest burned, a fire of emotions he refused to name: jealousy, rage, guilt. Each one screamed within him, demanding release. She's my wife. The thought rode through his mind. Mine, not his. And yet, as he stood there, he could not escape the truth. Jaemin was giving her the care that he himself had denied. Jaemin was stepping into the role Jungkook had abandoned. The fire in his chest grew unbearable, consuming reason. He shoved the door open fully, starting both of them. Minnie looked up, startled, her eyes wide and shimmering with unspoken fear. Jamin quickly set the cup aside, his expression tightening. What is this? Jungkook's voice was low, but it carried the weight of thunder. His gaze burned into the space between them. She was unwell, Jamin replied firmly, though his tone carried an edge. The doctor prescribed medicine. I was only helping her to take it. Helping? Jungkook's lips curled in disdain. You sit in my wife's rooms in the dead of night, feeding her medicine like his words cut off, his throat tightening around them. Enough, he snapped, his glare piercing through her. You have found comfort in my brother's company, haven't you? Smiling at him, letting him play the role of husband while I. That's enough, Young. Jamin interrupted sharply, rising to his feet. His eyes were aflame with something Jungkook had never seen in him before: defiance. She's suffering. She needs someone. If you had cared for her over a fraction, I wouldn't have to step in. The word stuck Jungkook like a blade. For a moment, silence reigned, heavy and suffocating. Jungkook just heaved with suppressed rage. But beneath it all, a small voice whispered truths he refused to face. Without another word, he turned on his heel and left, the door slamming shut behind him. But the fire remained, burning, consuming, leaving behind only ashes of doubt and fury. The night stretched endlessly after Jungkook's departure. Minnie sat froze, her hands trembling as Jaemin gently touched her arm. Don't cry, he said softly, though his own voice was unsteady. He don't mean it, but he did. Every word, every accusation, every cruel glance, Jungkook had meant it. When Jaemin finally left her to rest, Minnie lay down, staring at the ceiling, her earth edged with a longing so deep it felt unbearable for her. She wished just once that Jungkook would sit at her side and hold her hand, that he would ask if she was in pain, that he would speak to her with even a shred of tenderness he so easily buried beneath cruelty. but the hallway remained silent. The door never opened again, and so she cried quietly, pressing her face into the pillow to muffle the sound. The tears flowed not just for her loneliness, but for the life growing within her. She whispered apologies to the child, promising to be strong, promising to endure. Her tears soaked the pillow, unseen and unheard, for in Jungkook's word, her pain was invisible. The following morning she rose slowly, her body weak, her head heavy from the night of weeping. She entered the dining hall as she always did. Her step light, her presence subdued. Jungkook sat at the table, his face cold. A newspaper spread before him. He did not look up when she approached, did not acknowledge the way. Her hands trembled as she poured his tea. "Sit," he ordered curtly, his eyes never leaving the papers. She obeyed, lowering herself onto the chair beside him. For a moment, silence hung between them, broken only by the clinking of his spoon against the porcelain. Finally, he spoke, his tone dripping with disdain. "Tell me, Minnie." Hope you guys like the video. Thank you so much for watching, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. And for videos like this, you have to subscribe to my channel and tell me in comment section that what change do you want the video and what type of video do you like. And so, I will write you this is for bye bye. See you soon.